What's up, everybody? And welcome to another edition of High Mythology,
So high.
the show where I get high enough to talk to cows, and we tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore. Cows are good conversationalists. They get left out a lot. Moo. Oh, yeah. Tonight, we will be bringing you three tales from Chile. Chile. So bundle up, because it's about to get chilly.
Nice.
Nice. Oh, yeah. So without further ado, Kimbo, why don't you go ahead and take it away with story number 1, the story that became a dream.
Thank you. So this was a young man out traveling, and we will call him Sancho, who came to a town he hadn't known before. Strolling along the streets, he peered through an entrance and saw a beautiful young woman sitting down for tea. She caught his fancy, and every day from then on he passed by her door just to catch a glimpse of her. One day, he came to a full stop and asked permission to light his cigar at her fireplace. With this little excuse, he struck up a conversation and was soon asking,
Are you married or single?
She replied,
Oh, I'm single.
but it wasn't true. The lady was married. Her husband, it seemed, was an idler who had nothing better to do than crawl the streets up and down, coming home to his wife at night, and sometimes not even then. We'll call her Sanchorita.
Sanchorita.
What did you call her earlier? Sanchita.
Sanchita.
Sanchita. As it happened, the woman's admirer had the same occupation as the husband. And since the two of them frequented the same places, it wasn't long before the two were friends.
Oh, shit, it's his coworker.
All the while, the admirer was paying daily visits to the wife, and occasionally he would come to her when it was dark. After their first night together, he pledged his love by giving her an expensive ring with his name engraved on the inside of the band.
It says Sancho.
One night, just as the lovers were saying their goodbyes, there came a knock on the door, and the woman called. Yeah.
Who is it?
To which the answer came back.
It's your husband.
We'll call him Tito, by the way.
Tito, your husband.
The lover
And I love
whispered.
you.
Sancho whispered.
What? You mean you're married?
To which she replies.
Well, we'll talk about that later. Don't even bother with that. The important thing right now is where to hide you, because you definitely need to hide. My husband's a little bit crazy.
So she hid him under a pile of wool in the corner of the room. Just so happened to be some wool there hanging out in the fucking corner of the room. Covered up and all muffled around the ears, the lover was unable to see the husband or recognize his voice. Finally, at 3 a.m, he managed to slip away. The next day, he recounted the adventures to his friend, and Tito says,
Well, aren't you the lucky one? A good-looking girl, huh? And you're going to be there tonight again?
To which Sancho replies,
Why not? It is fresh love.
But
so fresh.
But if the husband thought it would be easy to catch his rival in the act, he was mistaken. The wife was too quick for him, always hiding the lover in a different spot. And worse, the husband had to listen to his friend's tale of adventure the following day.
You know, I swear someone's doing that to my wife, too.
Sancho would always start,
Old buddy.
and then continue to say,
That husband doesn't stand a chance. He's a louse. He's outrageous. She doesn't even want him around. And listen, he sticks his nose into every nook and cranny. I mean, he gets his nose just all the way up into that nook. Just all up in there. But she knows where to hide me.
to which Tito replies,
Oh, you don't say. She must be crazy about you. What luck. You lucky guy.
One night, at a loss for a new place to hide her lover, Sanchita put him in a little shed just off the kitchen where the cook threw dishwater and food scraps. It was a foul hiding place, but the man had no choice. The husband, after checking everywhere else, tossed a pebble into the waste shed, saying,
Take this wherever you are, you piece. Oh, no, wrong voice. You take this wherever you are, you piece of shit.
Nice. The stone splashed the lover with mud from head to foot, yet he was able to keep still and not be seen. The next day he reported all of this to his friend, who pretended to be only mildly interested. And after giving his wife's lover a congratulatory pat on the back,
Good job,
he went
buddy.
off to see his father-in-law, who had a country place not far from town. Tito said,
You ought to know what kind of daughter you have.
and then explained what had been happening. The father sent for his daughter at once and locked her in a room. Then he told his son-in-law to invite his friend to dinner. He would judge for himself whether his daughter was guilty. If he found that she was, he would kill the two of them on the spot. Yeah, it gets better.
I told you he's fucking crazy. He doesn't sound like it, but he's very crazy.
The father sent for the daughter. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay. The husband went back to town and soon returned with his friend. At noon, the three men gathered at the table for a conventional meal. Course after course washed down with draughts of wine. When dessert came, the host proposed to each that they all relate their little adventures, beginning with himself. And he proceeded to tell an enormous tale that he had no doubt invented, but that drew appreciative snorts all around. Tito says,
Now it's your turn.
he gestured to his invited guest, to which Sancho replies,
Very well.
and without an inkling of what to lay in store, he began to relate his adventures with the host's own daughter, sparing no small item.
We did the thing with the reverse wheelbarrow. She's a total freak, man.
You should see what she does with that wool.
She can actually smoke a Virginia Slim with that thing.
And the poor young woman heard everything through the door. I don't think she's a poor young woman. That cheating bitch.
I am but a young and nimble flower.
When he got to the part about the pebble in the waste shed, he started to feel his throat getting dry, and he called for a cup of water. They offered, take the wine. But no, he needed water. And with that, he was saved, because when the servant woman went out of the kitchen to get the water, the host's daughter called to her through the open window, and without attracting the servant's notice, she took off the ring of her lover and that she had been given, and dropped it into the cup. Seeing the ring, the guest drained the cup, slipped the ring into his vest pocket, and went on with the story.
So after the husband looked all over the house and could not find me, he was so furious he picked up a stone and threw it in the waste shed, saying, Take this, wherever you are, you piece of shit. And it was a direct hit. I was splashed all over with mud. And just at that moment, I woke up in a sweat, frightened to death.
The old man gestures.
What? You mean it was only a dream?
To which Sancho replies,
Sir, what do you take me for? Do you think I would have told such a story if it had been true?
The old man turns to his son-in-law and yells,
Rogue, vile, scandal, monger, you've trifled with my honor. Now make your place with God. Peace your place. Peace your place with God, because you've breathed your last.
And with one thrust of his dagger, he hushed him up forever. They buried the dead man in the gardens, and no one ever asked questions. As for the dinner guest, he became a frequent visitor at the old man's country estate, and before the year was out, he married the young widower, who had figured so promptly in the story.
I also fucked the father-in-law's wife, Sancho.
And that was it. Interesting story. Yeah?
I don't know if that was as much of a folktale as it was a confession of murder, but okay.
No, I just thought it was fun from Chile. I was like, oh,
That is a
hey.
good one. Yeah. But what was the magical aspect? The magic was that they didn't get caught.
Do you think that was from the perspective of the guy that recorded this?
Yeah, I actually am wondering if he may have murdered someone.
Yeah. But
This-
you have the who
oh
it was
yeah, it
recorded
was
by.
recorded by Jose Manuel Reyes. And if we
Manuel.
accidentally, Manuel, and if we accidentally gave up your story, don't come after us. I'm sorry, it was in a book.
It just happens.
It happens.
All right. Number 2.
7 blind queens.
This one's fun. In a faraway country, there was once a cruel king who took pleasure in making his people suffer. One day, while out hunting in the woods, he saw a beautiful young woman standing at the door of a cottage. He brought her back to the palace and married her. The new queen's happiness lasted no more than a month. At first, charmed by her loveliness, the king behaved himself. But as the novelty wore off, he revealed his true nature and began tormenting everybody. Since the queen was closest to him, she paid the heaviest price.
Oh.
One morning, he woke up in a fury, ordered the queen's eyes be plucked out, and then shouted at his guards.
Take her to the dungeon. Keep her on bread and water.
Not long after that, the king married a second young woman, and she too had her mouth. She too had her month of happiness, and then her troubles began.
Mouth of happiness. Here's a mouthful of happiness.
Before another month had gone by, the king had blinded her and thrown her into the dungeon with the first queen. The same fate befell upon 5 additional brides, one after another. Each of the imprisoned queens gave birth, but only the first of the 7 was able to protect her child. The others, driven by hunger, ate their newborn infants.
Jesus.
Yeah. Right?
That shit's getting scary in that dungeon.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're only fed on bread and water, you need meat and protein, actual substance and shit. Whatever. I mean that's not my first choice.
Yeah, I think at that point they're just splitting hairs. Like, you know what I could
you're
really use? A
fucking
baby
carnivores.
sandwich.
A roasted thigh. The first queen carefully hid her little boy, and as though he had known, he knew what would happen if his mother's companions discovered him, he had never made the slightest cry.
Oh.
I'm going to choke on my own spit there. Hang on. He was a beautiful child and grew quickly. At night, while the other queens were asleep, his mother taught him to speak. Bit by bit, she passed along to him what little knowledge she had. He absorbed it, and without having to be told twice, for he was blessed with a quick mind. One day, the boy found a key that had been dropped on the floor of the dungeon. Playing with it, he poked it into the damp wall, and the motor crumbled away. There was a tiny shaft of light, so he kept working at the stone until he made a hole large enough for him to crawl through. He said to his mother,
Mother, I'm going out to see what I can find. Stand in front of the hole so the warden won't notice.
So much for a little boy, yeah.
I'm just a little boy.
Well, he grew quick, I guess. On the other side of the wall was a garden filled with flowers and fruit trees. The boy gathered as much fruit as he could carry and brought it to his mother. Only then did she tell her companions that she had a son. And she said to her boy, "Share the fruit with the other queens." From that moment on, he was the darling of them all. He repaid their affection by bringing them fresh provisions from the garden each day. Every time he went out, his mother felt her heart pounding. She thought, "What if the gardeners find him and take him to the king?" Finally, she says to him, "Son, if they catch you, they'll ask you, 'Where are you from? What is your name? Who are your parents?' You tell them, 'My home is the world. My name is Wind. My father and mother are thunder and rain.'" More than a year went by without anyone discovering him because the boy made his excursions first thing in the morning. and the gardeners were not early risers. At last, however, one of the gardeners got up earlier than usual and caught the boy and took him to the king. But the child found favor with the king, and when the king began to question him,
"Where are you from?"
the boy would answer,
"My home is the world."
to which the king continued to ask,
"Well, who is your mother and your father?"
to which the boy replies,
"My father is thunder,
and
my mother is the rain."
thank you. And so the king suspected nothing. Only because you skipped the other one. Now, shortly after gorging out the eyes of the seventh queen and locking her up in the dungeon, the king had married again. This time he had met his match. The new wife was a strong-minded woman with a heart of stone, who lorded over her husband until he gave in to all her demands and became soft and weak. Damn, I want to be a bitch like that. I've already told you how the boy pleased the king at first sight, and even more so with his ready answers to the king's question. The king had issued these orders.
"Dress him well. Give him free run of the palace and the grounds."
The boy
That little scamp.
The boy lived with the palace staff, who adored him. They gave him his fill at every meal, and when he got up from the table, he gathered the leftovers and brought them to the blind queens. He would stay and chat for a while with his mother and the other women, especially in the evenings before retiring to his room. Eventually, the boy's reputation reached the ears of the new queen, who demanded to see him. She, too, wanted to hear his smart answers, and when she had satisfied herself that he was a confident and strong-willed, as everyone said, she made up her mind to have him killed. Pretending to be ill, she called to the king and said,
"My dreams tell me that nothing will cure me except the milk of a lioness, which must be delivered by a lion, and in a lion's skin. And no one but the boy must go after it, and he must also paint little lion whiskers on his face, because I think it's really cute when kids do that."
The king, who obeyed all of the queen's orders, even if they were distasteful, sent the boy to get a cure. Alarmed, the boy first went to his mother to tell her what the queen had commanded, and his mother then advised him, "The queen only wants to get rid of you, but you won't be harmed if you follow my instructions. Before you go, ask the cook for bread, milk, a saucepan, and salt for seasoning. Keep traveling until you reach an open country, where you will see a cliff rising beside a stream shaded by a tree. Make a milksop with the bread and leave it next to the water. Then hide behind a tree. A lion will come along, sniff the sop, and gulp it down. He'll say, 'What a sop! Who brought this?' You'll come out of hiding and say, 'It was I, sir.' And the grateful lion will do your bidding." And so the boy did as his mother instructed. And when the lion had licked the last of the sop from his jowls, he looked around and said,
"Oh, what's this here sop thing we got? Who could have brought that?"
Canadian lion. To which the boy replied,
"Sir Lion, it was I."
So the lion asked,
"Oh, hey there, but what can I do? To show you my gratitude there, buddy?"
and the boy replies,
"Here's what I need. The milk of a lioness in a lion's skin, brought to the palace by a lion to cure the queen who is deathly ill. Also, I need you to paint cute little lion whiskers on my face."
And so the lion says,
"Oh, well, nothing could be easier than that, pal. A lion cub will go with you, and then take this wand, and when you get back to the palace there, just tap the lion cub on the head 3 times and say, 'Hey, go back to where you came from there, lion cub.'"
And before the lion had finished speaking, the lion cub appeared, carrying a lion's skin on its shoulders. When they got to the palace, the queen was out on her balcony. She caught sight of the lion cub carrying the lion's skin and flew into a rage. Just at the palace gate, the boy lifted the skin onto his own shoulders and gave the cub a tap 3 times, saying,
"Go back to where you came from."
and the cub disappeared, as well as his face paint. After this, after this, the queen hated the boy more than ever and swore to herself that she would see him killed. In no time, she took sick again. Quote. She said to the king,
"Oh, I've dreamed a dream of a cure, and nothing else will save me. I must lay my eyes on the singing towers and the dancing battlements, and the boy must be the one to bring them to me. Only the boy. Just him by himself. And also he needs to bring back some vodka. I'm almost out of that.
You want any Virginia Slims too, bitch?
I need some Virginia Slims too. Good point.
Should I get you a carton?
Yeah, pick me up a carton. That'll get me through a couple of days.
Jesus. The king gave the order to the boy, who went directly to the dungeons to ask his mother what to do. She said, "My son, don't worry. The queen wants you to die. But follow my instructions and you'll be protected. Before you go, ask the gardener for a burro." It's a donkey, y'all. "And tell the gardener's wife."
A donkey, y'all.
"And tell the gardener's wife to give you a guitar. Saddle up the burro and keep traveling for 7 hours. You'll reach the enchanted city, where you'll see no one else but an old sorceress who lives there. Strike up the guitar and she'll come out. As long as you keep playing, she'll be under your spell, and from then on, you'll know what to do." All right.
Yeah, jam out on some guitar.
I was thinking some cocoa shit.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So when he reached the gates of the enchanted city, he began to play, and an old woman came out and asked if she could buy the guitar. The boy promised.
"Later. First, you must show me the sights of the city."
And he continued to play without a moment's pause. As the old woman shuffled along beside him in her slippers, they came to a piglet in the beautiful little pig pen. He asked,
"Aw. Grandmother, what is this?"
to which she replies,
"You mean the little pig. It's the life of your father's new queen. Now please, give me the guitar."
He says,
"Later, grandmother."
and keeps on strumming. They came to the fountain of gold-colored waters.
Just jamming out. "Later, grandma. I'm shredding right now. You can't stop this riff."
They came to a fountain of gold-colored waters surrounded by flowers. And he asked,
"What's that, grandmother?"
to which she says,
"It is the water that restores sight to the blind. Now give me that guitar."
to which he says,
"Later. I'm
And-
shredding. Check this out. Stairway to Heaven."
and he kept plucking at the strings. They came to a platform of a single diamond, and in the middle was a tiny castle of ivory, vibrating with the soft sounds of angels singing inside of it. He asked,
"Grandmother, what the fuck is that?"
to which she replies,
"That is the singing towers and the dancing battlements. But let me have the guitar."
to which the boy says,
"Not yet. Check this out. It's the solo from 1.
and he kept on playing. They came to a place where there were many lighted candles, some long, some medium length, and some short. He asked,
"Grandmother, what the fuck are those?"
to which she replies,
"Those are the lives of all the people who live in the kingdom."
so he asks,
"And the tallest one, who is that? My father."
to which she says,
"No, it's mine, my child. Now let me have the guitar."
but before she could finish, the boy put out the flame with the one corner of his poncho, and the sorceress fell to the ground, dead forever. She must have been a fairy, yeah.
I was a fairy.
We had a story about that with fairies. He filled the flask with the golden water, slipped the ivory castle into the burro's saddlebag, and, leading the pig by a rope, rode back to his father's palace. The queen was waiting on her balcony, and when she saw the boy arrive, she tore her hair in frustration. He picked up the little pig and dashed it to the ground, killing it instantly. The queen drew one last breath and gave her soul to the devil.
Oh.
Interesting. After that, the boy rushed to the dungeons of the 7 blind queens. He restored their eyesight with the golden water, and then went to the king and told him everything. Hearing that this boy, who had become his favorite, was none other than his own son, and that the troublesome queen was no more, he exclaimed,
I am doubly blessed.
The king remarried the boy's mother and made sure that all of his subjects enjoyed themselves at the grand wedding banquet.
Some of you are kind of weird. You did eat babies.
The past served him as a lesson, and from that time on he governed wisely. As for the other queens, each married a grandee from the court and lived happily. Here ends my story, and the wind carries it out to sea. Recorded by
Louis Smith.
From Chile.
From Chile.
Remember, these are all some Chile stories.
They're all chilly. It's getting a little chilly in here.
Nice. All right. We're down to the last one already.
We're down to the last one.
Wow.
Yeah, here we go.
What do you guys think of that?
Yeah.
That was fucking interesting.
That was fun.
Way better than Sancho and Tito. That was the dream. Fuck. I just want you guys to know, actually, none of these people had fucking names. Because that's not really how it goes. Because it's supposed to interpret
Sancho
to who you are.
always had a name, and his name was Sancho.
I was going to guess Jose.
Jose? No, but I did know a guy named Jose who always said his name was Sancho.
Oh, he always wanted to be Sancho.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last one is called The Enchanted Cow.
No.
If you learned it, you'll know it. So listen and learn how to tell it. Now don't pick a fig until it's big. If you want a pear, you'll need a ladder. And if you'd like a melon, marry a man with a big nose.
Yeah.
That's what it says, man. Don't judge me.
Yeah. It just starts off. We're gonna just run this like it's a comedy bit. Just gonna keep hitting you with some one-liners.
Some fucked up shit.
Get the blood flowing.
There was once a woman called Dolores who had 2 children, a boy who was 12, whose name was Joaquin, and a baby girl, Chabalita.
Chabalita.
To the baby.
No,
Dolores had a husband, but not now.
But not anymore.
And such a good-looking, hard-working, honorable husband. But one day, not long after Chabalita was born, this husband went off to the fair in Chile to sell a fattened cow, and he never came back. The cow showed up the following day with a rope caught around its horns and its hide all wet. The husband, they thought, must have drowned crossing the river, and the cow somehow got away. But when they looked for the body, they found nothing. A few days later, some workmen mentioned that they had seen the husband and a woman who lived near the river riding off together on a horse. This woman was the one they called the lost soul, because she had commerce with the devil. It was said. And at night, you could hear singing and carrying out on her ranch.
Oh, so she likes to party.
Yeah, she was the devil.
She's the devil.
In spite of it, Dolores could not believe that her Pancho, for that was his name, would leave his family and run off with another woman. But how could she argue? Her husband was gone without a trace. Originally, she had come from a small village near La Constitution. So she decided to go back there with her son and her newborn baby. She sold off what little land she had and the few animals, keeping only the cow that had come home from that day from the river. She loved this cow.
Moo.
For when it looked at her in the eye, it seemed almost human. Besides, it gave her plenty of rich milk, and she was using it to feed Chabalita, because she could not produce her own.
Oh.
No, it's not really. She was using it to feed the baby for sure, yeah, but...
Yeah. You just added that part in.
With the money she had gotten from the sale, she bought a little farm not far from her old home village, close to the sea. She could gather shellfish and make ends meet, and with the milk from the cow, there would be cheese. Joaquin helped too. watching after his little sister. One day, while his mother was in the village, Joaquin decided to take the baby for a bath in the ocean. Why a bath in the ocean is beyond me, because that's salt, bitches.
Yeah, you're going to have to get clean again.
And Joaquin doesn't understand, I guess. He's only 12, right?
Yeah.
He picked her up in his arms and waded in. In a flash, a giant wave pulled him head over heels, and what happened to the baby, he had no idea. When he could breathe again, he let out with a scream, and then plunged into the water. But there was no sign of his baby sister. Wild with grief, he fell down onto the beach and sobbed. Suddenly, he heard his name being called. He raised his head, and there was the cow speaking to him with a human voice. It said,
I knew this was gonna happen to you. It was the same with your father. He tried to cross the river, and that woman came after him. She's a witch, you know, and the water spirits are her in-laws. She used her wicked arts against him and doomed him. Now he's got the baby. She's got the baby. You'll be next unless you do what I'm about to tell you.
To which Joaquin questioned.
Hey, what would that be?
To which the cow replies.
You must take your knife and kill me, then skin me immediately. Spread the hide on the water, and it will take you over the waves. Be sure to hang on to the tail if you find yourself in danger. Pluck one of my tail hairs, and it will be your salvation. And don't forget, take out my eyes and put them in your pocket. They're powerful. They'll let you see through the water and the earth, and even the mountains and stone walls. Moo.
The boy followed these instructions.
Just crying the whole time. I don't want to kill you, cow. Just do it.
The boy followed these instructions, and before he knew it, he was gliding over the waves. When he was far from shore, hundreds of fish started snapping at the hooves of the cowhide, threatening to drag him to the bottom of the sea. But he remembered what the cow had told him, pluck a hair from the tail. And when it turned into a hefty oar, he clotted the fish until they were all floating bottom side up.
Pa, pa, pa.
I imagine that'd be like some weird game of fucking whack-a-mole. Night came fast, dark and gloomy. But he took one of the cow's eyes out of his pocket and gazed into the water. Far below, he could see rocks, fish, monsters of the deep, and old shipwrecks. There was not a thing in his way, however, and with the eyeball close at hand, he sailed on throughout the night. When morning came, a flock of birds larger than the condors came swooping down to land on the cowhide. Before they could sink it, he pulled another hair from the tail, and when he looked at it a second time, it was a loaded blunderbuss.
I was going to say, the gun. And it was a loaded AR-15.
He pulled the trigger, and some of the birds flew off screaming, and others dropped into the water, and their blood turned the ocean red. Another couple of hours go by, and icebergs...
This is all probably really scarring for this poor kid.
I know, he's like
I
only
didn't
12.
want to kill any animals. What did you make me do this, cow?
I just joined PETA. What are they going to think of me?
Yeah, exactly.
Another couple hours go by, and icebergs come into view. In what seemed no more than a few moments, they were on top of him.
Iceberg, right ahead.
In his haste to pluck a hair, he yanked nearly half of the whole tuft from the end of the tail.
Oh.
As he threw the tuft at the iceberg, the hairs burst into flames, and the ice melted, and the cowhide sped on its way.
Choo-choo.
Finally, with one of the eyeballs as his telescope, he spotted an island on the horizon. In the middle of the island was a castle surrounded by walls as high as mountains. He thought,
my little sister's there.
And the cowhide landed. He adjusted the eyeballs to look through the castle walls, and there was an enormous room with a column of black marbles in the center. Black marble in the center. Chained to the column was a man, and close by, a pan of live coals. Bending over the coals was the woman they said had stolen his father. She clutched a baby in one hand and a butcher's knife in the other, ready to skin the baby.
Ouch.
She seemed to be talking with the man, who turned his face away as if he didn't want to see what she was about to do. Without wasting a second, Joaquin snatched the remaining hairs from the cow's tail and put them in his pocket. He laid one of them against the wall, and it became a ladder. Up he climbed until he reached a window. With a single bound, he jumped through the window, landed next to the woman. Then he tore the knife from her hand and gave her a whack that sent her rolling across the floor.
Ka-cha!
He picked up the baby and untied the prisoner, who was none other than his own father. So thin and pale he seemed more like a skeleton than a live man. Then, with one of the cow's eyes, Joaquin peered into the black marble column. He saw a staircase leading downwards. So he found the door, and he opened it and descended into a treasure cave.
Treasure cave!
He and his father filled their pockets with gold and precious stones, and then followed the winding passageway out to the sea. They jumped onto the cowhide and were pushed home in no time by the hands of invisible beings. No time.
Ghosts.
Took way longer to get home than fucking getting there.
Yeah, Patrick Swayze from Ghosts.
Dolores was on the beach waiting for them. She picked up a scent in the wind. Like some fucking
You smell
animal.
that? Smells like cowboat.
And when she saw her lost husband and her 2 children, she threw her arms around them and cried for joy. Her husband explained how the lost soul had carried him off by speaking a few magic words, and how she had tied him up in her castle when he refused to marry her. While his father was telling the story, Joaquin was running back and forth along the beach, gathering up the cowhide and the cow's bones. He had bundled them all together and put the eyes back into the sockets. Then he reached into his pocket.
He's still just crying the whole time. I just want you back, my cow friend.
Then he reached back into his pocket, pulled out the last hair from the cow's tail, and he struck a match to burn the hair, but burned his fingers instead and dropped the match. It fell onto the hide, and the cow stood up. It was as plump and healthy as ever and started ambling home.
Moo.
With a portion of gold and jewels they had stuffed into their pockets, Joaquin's father bought a ranch, lots of animals, and everything else they needed to be rich. And they all lived happily till the day they died. And here we are, still waiting for our luck to change. Mm-hmm. My tale is done, and the wind blows it off. When the wind brings it back, I'll tell it again.
I like that finish right there. Yeah, and that's good for them, but where's my fucking money, huh? Oh, that story was recorded by Magdalena
Munez.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, I hope you folks enjoyed this episode. Hope you had a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our resource for this book was the book Latin American Folktales, Stories from Hispanic and Indian Traditions, introduced by John Beerhorst. Beerhorst. Yeah. Very, very Latin American name. Of the Mexico City Beerhorsts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Be sure to give it a like, subscribe, follow us, tune in every Thursday and Saturday for new episodes and new shorts. And, yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.